So let us begin. It is 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 31st of March 2026. So we are commencing our council meeting and I declare the meeting open. I welcome councillors and management and members of the public attending tonight's meeting, both in person and virtually, and good to see good attendance in the gallery here this evening. We are meeting on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, and I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we govern, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin, and pay respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, cultural and political connection they have maintained to this unique place for more than 2,000 generations. This meeting is being streamed live and the recording will be published on Council's website by close of business tomorrow. The unconfirmed minutes of this meeting will also be available from the City of Melbourne's website as soon as practicable. I request that all mobile phones be turned off or to silent for the duration of the meeting. No apologies have been received, I'm very pleased to say. Moving on to agenda item 2, disclosure of conflicts of interest. If any councillor has any either general or material conflict of interest as defined in the Local Government Act in relation to a matter to be considered by council, please disclose the type and nature of the interest prior to consideration of the item. Moving on to agenda item 3, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. I call on a councillor, Councillor Andrew Rouse.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. Timely today, considering we'll be discussing the budget and the capital works budget as well. The minutes, there is a small error, and it's probably a new level of pedancy for myself. The last time we had a council meeting in this room, the roof leaked, so the room flooded and we had to go downstairs. And so the location is incorrect on the minutes.
Wow. I respect your pedancy. A very good pickup.
Forgive me, pedantry.
I set that one up and she hit it out of the park. Thank you, Councillor Ball.
We will ensure that the minutes are amended to reflect the correct location of that meeting. And I call on a councillor to move a motion adopting the open minutes of council meeting number 15 held on Tuesday the 24th of February. Thank you, Councillor Rouse. Looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ball. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise their hands. And the minutes are adopted and corrected. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4, matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting? No? Okay. We move to correspondence and submissions. The following submissions have been received in accordance with Council's governance rules. In relation to agenda item 6.1, got an item of correspondence from Chris Thrum, Honorary Councillor. In relation to agenda item 6.4, got referred documents from 20 Feb Audit and Risk Committee. We've got a correspondence from Michael Kennedy, a regular contributor to debate in this place. Thank you, Michael. In relation to agenda item 7.1, notice of motion, Raphael Camillo, review of management and governance QVM. We have items of correspondence from Mary Lou Howie and B. McNichols. Pleased to see you here this evening as well. Status of confidential items. Does any councillor wish to discuss the confidential status of any of the confidential items listed in the public agenda? No. Okay. In that case, we move on to agenda item 5, reports from committee. There's no reports from committee, so we'll move on to agenda item 6, reports from management. There are 4 reports from management. The first of those, 6.1, draft budget 2026-27. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this item? I'll take that as a no. We spent a lot of time talking about it today. In that case, I would invite a motion to be put on the screen for councillors to view. Can we just keep scrolling down so we can see that it is all there? And I'm looking for a councillor to move that motion. Thank you, Councillor Owen Guest. I will second it. Back to you, Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's been a big day for us all, and whilst we won't have a presentation, I will, for the cameras, highlight that this here is our draft budget, and an awful lot of time and effort has gone into the making of it. Whenever one delivers a draft budget, of course, everyone is interested in what we'll be doing in the forthcoming year, but it's also a good time to reflect and see what we've done in the previous year. So on that note, I'd say, last year we spoke of it being a turning point for the City of Melbourne in terms of its budget, where financial stability and sustainability would take front position. We also spoke of employing a back-to-basics attitude and the need for small but consistent surpluses and an improved debt position. I also last year covered the notion of transparency and the need for greater transparency when it comes to council's expenditures. We'll keep those topics in mind and we'll get back to them, but let's start with a few headline figures for the evening. Expenditure in the forthcoming year is expected to be $804 million, which is an increase of $72 million on this time last year. Reasons for that are varied, but include significant inflation forces, which I'm sure we're all feeling, and it's also being felt here at the City of Melbourne. And on top of that, there are the choices we have made collectively to bring forward certain aspects of the Capital Works program and to add what I call identifiable and needed services. So, on the one hand, such great expenditure is disappointing, but on the other, it's also supportable. Supportable because when it comes to the expenditure on additional security officers, cameras and additional staff within the Melbourne Outreach team, I don't think anyone will argue that the safety of Melbourne is paramount, and I don't think any ratepayer would argue with that. Another key figure we have here, of course, is a surplus of $1.2 million. If we succeed in doing this, and we will, that will make 3 surpluses in a row. This is very important, a hat-trick, and no small achievement, especially when you consider the predicament of other governments around the country and around the world. Next, I would look at our debt. If we go back 18 months, notwithstanding the cost pressures we face here at the City of Melbourne and everybody else, but we faced a debt that was forecast to reach $275 million, and that was going to occur in the year 2027. Now that debt forecast is down to $160 million, and it will continue to go down after that to $60 million by the end of our term in 2028. That is a significant improvement and a real tick, if you like, to the financial team here to make sure that the City of Melbourne is financially sustainable and we're able to deliver the services that we truly need. So as I said earlier, if I'm to judge us on 3 factors, the factors being our ability to deliver a service, a surplus, a responsible debt and transparency, I think we already deserve 2 ticks so far. Transparency is what I regard as an area where we need to improve for certain metrics that I have discussed in the past, which you can see in our previous annual report. We need to bring more of our things from closed sessions into open sessions. Now is not the time, I don't think, to go into that any further, but I do think we're 2 ticks out of 3, and there are things that I know are in place, and one of them is a review into the City of Melbourne services, as well as into a formal review into transparency. And for that, we should thank Alison, our CEO, and the rest of our executive team for supporting that. These are important items so that the ratepayers and people of Melbourne can feel trust in this organisation and the services we deliver for good value. Finally, I think we should all say a big thank you to all of the ratepayers of Melbourne, because without them, none of what we do here could happen. They pay about 2/3 of the revenue of council, and they should be acknowledged continually and thanked profusely. With that, Lord Mayor, I think I've said enough at the moment, but this is a budget draft. And I've forgotten one thing, haven't I? And that, of course, is the invitation to everybody to respond to this budget. We desperately want to know what you think. It is possible that we can change things, but we won't do that without hearing your voice. So to ratepayers and everybody else who loves Melbourne, please use all the vehicles available to you and comment on this budget, because we really want to hear well done to everybody involved.
Thank you very much, Councillor Guest. As our finance lead amongst councillors, I want to begin by thanking you for your efforts in helping shape this draft budget which has been released today. I described you earlier as a fiscal hawk, which I know you'll take as a badge of honour. Yes, want to thank you for your strength and guidance as we have worked through this year's budget process. I also want to thank our CEO, Alison Layton, Mans Bassey, Lincoln Tong, Justin Randall, and all the team in the budget and finance team and the broader team at the City of Melbourne. And I also want to thank our councillors. There have been many hundreds of hours of work that have gone into shaping up this budget. It's been a team effort here at the City of Melbourne, and I think it's a draft budget that we can all be proud of. As Councillor Guest did say, we're not saying it's perfect. That's why we go out to a public consultation process, and Melburnians will have until April the 28th to let us know their thoughts on the budget, and then we will take that into account before we vote on a final budget. I think this is a budget that is built on the foundation stone of financial responsibility. It underpins everything we do here at the City of Melbourne. We should not forget that in the last council term, this city was facing extremely challenging financial times. We were forecasting budget deficits of $57 million. We had forecast debt of $270 million. Today, we have city finances in very different condition, and I'm pleased to say our finances are in very good nick with a budget surplus of $1.2 million, our third budget surplus, and our debt level forecast to fall to $60 million by the end of this term. That hasn't happened by magic. It's happened through good decision-making, prudent financial management, and strong leadership here at Town Hall. Every budget is a balancing act, and this budget does include a plan to implement the Victorian Government's 2.75% rate cap. That will ensure that we can continue to deliver quality services that our community expects, as well as balance our budget. There are also increases in parking fees in the budget as well, fairly moderate, in fact, very minimal, I would say. The average hourly parking fee going up from $7 to $7.30 here in the CBD. The reason we're doing that is because the costs that we are facing here at the City of Melbourne to deliver the essential services that our community relies on are growing exorbitantly. To give you one example, the cost of laying bitumen has increased by 56% over the last 4 years. So when you're facing cost increases of well over 10% per annum, having a rates increase of 2.75% per annum, I think is modest and reasonable, and ensures that we can continue to deliver services to the standard that people expect here in Melbourne. When people come to Melbourne and people who live in Melbourne, we want them to feel proud about their city. We want to be a municipality where we fix the potholes, we mow the grass, we clean our streets, we remove the graffiti. We don't have brush fires breaking out in nature strips because they haven't been kept properly. We want this to be a city which people can truly be proud of, and that has resulted in us delivering a balanced budget which has some modest increases in rates and charges, but ultimately means that we will continue to serve our community well. There's lots of things in this budget, and I'm sure we'll hear from councillors about some of those. I, in particular, wanted to single out the initiative in the budget around community safety and how we're going to be doing things a bit differently going forward. So this budget does provide funding to double the number of community safety officers in Melbourne from 11 to 22. We're doing that because we know that our CSOs have had a really significant positive influence on our city. But we're doing something else in this budget as well. We are providing funding to fund a dedicated outreach team on our streets to provide support for rough sleepers and other marginalised people. That'll involve a team of approximately 10, which will include, for the first time, 2 complex case managers to support people facing acute mental health challenges in our municipality. So in this way, with the CSOs, with the newly funded street outreach teams, we will deliver a Melbourne which is safer and kinder. These 2 things will go together in Melbourne. We're also providing funding for an expansion of our CCTV network, another feature in making Melbourne safe. We're also going to bring our streets to life with many exciting initiatives around new city lighting and also funding for festivals as well. I'm particularly excited about the new funding around multicultural events. Melbourne is famous for things like the Chinese Lunar New Year and the Antipodes Greek Festival. I'm hoping in years to come we'll be famous also for our Ramadan celebrations and our holy festivals, making the most of the fact that we are the most successful multicultural city in the world and turning it not just to an advantage and source of celebration for our community, but a driver for new visitation and economic, positive economic outcomes for our city as well. Finally, I'm very pleased to say that this is a fantastic budget for the environment and for delivering our Garden City agenda. There are 13, in this budget we'll be fast-tracking the delivery of another 13 new parks and green spaces on top of what we delivered in last year's budget. That's 21 new green spaces across the city that have been funded and are in the process of being delivered. And there's some very, very exciting new projects in North Melbourne, Kensington, South Bank, Carlton and beyond, which I think are going to be transformative for those communities. So you put that all together, and I think this is a budget which delivers on what Melburnians have told us matters for them, building a budget that delivers on the basics, a budget that helps make Melbourne more livable for everyone. So I do hope it will meet with councillor support this evening, and I look forward to the community consultation process we're going to go through. Would any other councillors wish to speak to this agenda item? Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would add my thanks to all of our officers who have worked so incredibly hard, as they do every year, to bring us to this point. Bravo, amazing work. Thank you all, our good and faithful public servants. I would also like to encourage the public to have a look at this draft and let us know what you think of it. It's unique that at local government level, we put out a draft before we finalise the budget, and this is the opportunity for our residents and our entire municipal community to provide their feedback. So make the most of this opportunity. And I'm pleased to say that next year the budget process will look rather different, because next year we will be piloting a participatory budget process, which is tremendous for democracy. We all have perhaps mixed feelings about this draft, and I'm quite keen to see what the public thinks. As the Lord Mayor has intimated, we will be nearly doubling our CSOs on the street, which may be a good thing or may not, because we haven't yet evaluated the first 6 months of the program as promised. So this decision has been made before we know the efficacy of the program, and Council will now spend $3.7 million every year on this program. And in spite of the fact that Victoria Police have just announced that they will double the street patrols in the CBD, which may be what we were needing and maybe makes this program something that we could wind up potentially. So these are very good questions for the public to consider. I'm very pleased, as the Lord Mayor had already said, that we are increasing at the same time our support for homelessness services here in the centre of Melbourne to the tune of an additional $1 million a year, up from $3 million in this current year to $2.35 million for each of the next 4 years, which gives us more outreach workers, including, importantly, complex case managers. It's one thing for us as a local government and those services with which we partner to support homeless people to remain homeless. And clearly that's not what any of us want and what we as a society must aim to do and can achieve if we wish is to, of course, end homelessness. So I, for one, very much hope that the federal government will act to make our tax system fairer and abolish negative gearing and the capital gains tax concessions, which we see quite clearly in the data have sent house prices through the roof when they were introduced, as investors are now hoarding houses rather than because it's under those tax settings, it's more profitable than alternatives. I'm delighted to see new experiments and planning from our wonderful transport planners and urban planners, specifically in raising the level of Flinders Lane, I think only for one block, if I'm not mistaken, between Elizabeth and Swanston Street, to the level of the footpath to make it clearer than we have in the past that this is a pedestrianised area. Cars will still be permitted at a very low speed, possibly not 24/7, but anything that prioritises active and public transport is good for our health, it's good for our businesses, and it's good for the environment. Further, in my capacity as Deputy Environment Portfolio Lead, I am so pleased that we are now getting to provide FOGO to high-rise apartment dwellers. We have conducted a pilot putting dehumidifiers, that's not the word, dehydrators in large apartment buildings where people can deposit their compost from their kitchen waste, and that has proven successful now that we can roll that out to apartment buildings above 5 stories. And as we know, the great majority of our residents live in those kinds of apartments, and therefore this is now for the first time going to be available to the great majority of our residents. Congratulations and thank you to all the staff who have worked on that. I'm also thrilled with the open space funding. As the Lord Mayor has said, an extraordinary 13 projects are online in the coming financial year, both to build brand new parks and expand existing parks, including, and I'll highlight these, the Chapman Street Pocket Park in North Melbourne and expanding the Miles and Dodd Street Park in South Bank. Why do I highlight those? Because these are the 2 suburbs in our municipality most in need of green open space on a per capita basis. So fantastic for those residents. And I'm quite excited personally about the $5.5 million for our City Road Undercroft in South Bank. This is going to be a new thing for Melbourne, an exciting thing for Melbourne. I hope Melburnians will embrace it and it will make a fantastic use of this space, and we need to make the best use of all of the public space that we have. So congratulations to our urban designers, park designers, everyone who's been working on that. It is fantastic. And finally, this coming financial year, we will be upgrading protected bike lanes in Exhibition Street, but also finally building protected bike lanes in Queensbury Street, I think from memory from Peel to Rathdown, and that is tremendous. There's been a lot of change going on in Carlton with the construction of new stations, and the public has been waiting for this. It's a very important east-west thoroughfare through Carlton, and I'm very glad to see that progress. In fact, this budget provides an average of $4 million each year for new bike lanes, which I am assured, and I'm thrilled to have this assurance that with that funding, we are on track to meet our target of 50 kilometres of new, protected, connected bike lanes on local roads between 2020 and 2030. Is that correct, Rick?
Through you, Lord Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Dr. Ball. Yes, it is correct. We'll be reaching the targets outlined in our transport strategy.
And can I confirm that those 50 kilometres we are going to reach or possibly exceed by 2030 are all on local roads, which is the target we set in the transport strategy?
Yes, they will be all on local roads, and there will be additional cycle lanes on arterial roads as well.
Tremendous, Rick. Thank you so much. Thank you again to everybody. I'm delighted with this. Thank you. I will be happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Councillor Raphael Camillo.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to thank you, Councillor Ball. She did a lot of updates, so it was going to be very quick, my speak today, because she raised some points about the waste and also infrastructure. Anyway, thank you, Lord Mayor. The draft budget will double. One of the most important information in here is double the number of community safety officers on our streets from 11 to 22. That's something we promised that would be very important for our community, and it is 1.7 million, but it's still very important. That means for more officers on the beat, supporting vulnerable people, stepping early to prevent antisocial behavior. An additional 100 cameras have been rolled out across the Safe City camera network in the past year, with up to 150 cameras to be added in your network, backed by 320,000 investment to maintain the citywide safety around the clock. Also, cleaner city means a safer, more welcome place for everyone. And this draft budget invests $34.3 million to keep Melbourne streets clean and well-maintained. We will get on with the job of removing graffiti, pick up litter, and keeping rubbish and recycling service running smoothly across our neighborhoods. With increasing funding of our clean team, now operates around the clock, targeting more than 130,000 square meters of graffiti each year, that equivalent of more than 5 MCGs. So, Melbournians deserve to feel safe, whatever they are, whether they are heading to work, enjoying a night out, or walking home. We are proud to be doubling the number of community safety officers and expand our safety cameras network, making Melbourne safer for everyone. This budget responds to what the community has asked for: a visible safety presence in our city and continue efforts towards improving the well-being of Melbournians and make our city world-class capital. And the approach that we have been talking, back to basics. And until the day I gotta be in this council, I gotta keep in promise. That's the focus of me being a councillor here. I could not leave the work of the team, but especially to Main Bass for all these years this nearly 2 years that we have been working together. Thank you, Mans. And of course, Gladys Liu, my deputy in safety and cleaning. Without her, I couldn't do most of the job, but most important than anything, this is a consultation draft. So you at home, get in there, have your say, and thank you, Lord Mayor. Back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? Deputy Lord Mayor Rashina Campbell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And those following along at home might say there's a lot that we councillors are excited about in this budget. But you, Lord Mayor, spoke about making Melbourne a safer and kinder city. And one of the ways that this budget does that is by focusing on the most vulnerable people in the City of Melbourne. It is a tragedy that in the City of Melbourne, our family violence rate is the highest amongst metropolitan LGAs. And that is why this budget can invest a further $200,000 in family violence prevention and support services, in particular exploring opportunities for a women's safe refuge. It also focuses on another vulnerable group, and that is the young people of the City of Melbourne, those in their early years. And it is an unfortunate reality that across Australia, around a quarter of our kids start school developmentally behind. So in an Australian first for local government, we will be investing $500,000 to close that developmental gap, to lift standards in literacy skills, in physical activity, in cognitive skills, and importantly, making sure that no child in the City of Melbourne is left behind. There's plenty more that I'm excited about in this budget, but I can't wait to hear what our community has to say about those priorities and so many more.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you for championing those initiatives through this year's budget process. Councillor Mark Scott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There are a lot of people very excited about this budget, and I am too, because this budget, draft budget, certainly brings our city streets to life. Melbourne streets will absolutely shine with new lights, more lights, culture and action than ever before, as part of a dedicated boost in this year's budget. $2 million, a record in fact, will be invested in our Light Up Melbourne project, which will illuminate more than half a dozen streets across the city, including some of Melbourne's most travelled to laneways that we're very famous for. Hosier Lane, how could you miss that? Collins Street, Hardware Lane, which attract millions of visitors every year, will be decked with new decorative lighting, while upgrades take place to liven hospitality hotspots, Flinders Lane, Little Bourke Street and Healy's Lane. So very excited about the Light Up Melbourne project. Also very excited, and certainly the largest Indian diaspora in Australia is in Melbourne. And more than 1.2 million will progress the development of the Little India precinct in Docklands. We'll bring this area to life through infrastructure, public realm upgrades, creative projects and more events, putting Little India on the map alongside Chinatown and Koreatown as a leading cultural precinct. As portfolio head for tourism and events, I definitely have to say, without disagreement from anyone in Australia except Lord Mayor Clover Moore, this city is the country's events capital. And this draft budget invests almost $26 million. I'd love to see more, and we'll work on that in future budgets, but $26 million will go into Melbourne's flagship events. Of course, New Year's Eve, Moomba and Christmas, but our amazing world-class events that I have to call out, and we've seen a little sneak preview today, and it looks incredible, Now or Never, and Melbourne Fashion Week. Also, beautiful City Square is open to us now that the Metro Tunnel is finished, and we will include $420,000 to create Christmas decorations to debut in City Square that will certainly bring that space to life. And finally, can I just say that all of these events and everything that we're doing to really bring our streets to life will bring millions into the city to stay, to spend, and most importantly, to support our local businesses.
Thank you, Councillor Scott, and thank you for the passion you bring to that portfolio area. Lots to cheer about there. Councillor David Griffiths.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I obviously want to take this opportunity to add my voice to that of my fellow councillors in thanking management for the work that's gone into preparing this, into exhorting members of the public to be part of the budget process, and to highlight some of the items that excite me most in the draft budget. And yet, let me commence at the start with thanking management for the work that has gone in over a large period of time. It's obviously you more or less finish the process on one budget and start the process for planning the next one at that point. So it's been a large amount of work, particularly in the context of the current economy. We know that with fuel prices and with other cost of living effects going up, that it's an important time, a vital time to be making sure that every dollar that we spend, we're spending as wisely as possible. And I think this budget certainly fulfills that. as well as our current officers. I also want to call out the good work of Rushda Halith, who has left us, but who was instrumental in helping to draw together some of the most important parts of the budget that we have before us tonight. Already highlighted some of those efforts to make Melbourne a fairer as well as a better city, particularly around some of the homelessness services, and it's great to hear the enthusiasm of councillors and Lord Mayor around that, but also to have had her championing that, I think is particularly worth calling out in the context that we're in today. So it's fantastic to see some of those initiatives, and of course it's fantastic to see some of the initiatives about really fleshing out what it means for Melbourne to be a garden city. Lord Mayor, work that you've been championing and that I've had great pleasure in helping through the environment portfolio as Councillor Dr Ball, as my deputy has already mentioned, 13 new projects. It feels a bit like a Tats Lotto call about, you know, the number 13 comes out lucky for some. I think the number 13 is going to be lucky for everyone in Melbourne, because those 13 new projects are spread right across the municipality, and I think that's a really important thing, that as a council we can demonstrate that we understand that this city is made up of a number of neighbourhoods. Each of them have specific needs, and I think through the kind of projects that we're sponsoring and paying for out of those $26 million are just emblematic of that. The one that probably strikes me as closest to home, literally in this case, is the $6.4 million for the Chelmsford Street Park, and that's a really exciting project, changing as it does what is currently a warehouse in an area where warehouses are being converted into homes and apartments all the time. It seems like every council meeting we are discussing that very important issue. Well, here we are converting a warehouse into new public open space, and I think that's going to become a really exciting project for the people of Kensington, alongside the many others that have been listed, as Councillor Ball did a very good job before of running through the ones in Carlton, in South Bank, right across the municipality. I'm really excited to see all of those, and I'm very excited to hear the people of Melbourne's enthusiasm for that. We've been hearing, with alongside the Garden City ambassadors, the excitement that people in Melbourne have for those new public open spaces. If you're one of those Melburnians who's been excited by that process so far, carry that excitement into the budget consultation and make sure you have your voices heard.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths, and thank you for being your leadership role in helping deliver that Garden City agenda. 13 is indeed a lucky number when it comes to parks in this year's budget. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? Councillor Kevin Louie.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'd like to also thank the management, also our Chief Executive, of course our Mans, Lincoln and the whole finance team, and all the colleagues for a very collaborative approach to the budget. Can I highlight just one item in it that I have a great deal of passion for? Over nearly 20 years now in council, the precincts program, the business precinct program, was established in, I think, 1999. So we're in the 27th or so year of reiteration. It started very modestly, and now it's a line item of $1 million in our line item. Plus, I believe there's an additional 200,000 this year to also increase activation. But that $1 million supports 10 precincts geographically spread around our city. Everything from Carlton right down to northwest Melbourne. We've got Kensington, we've got the Yarra River precinct, South Bank, etc. Also incorporates 3 cultural precincts, of course. We've got Lygon Street, we've got Lonsdale Street, the Greek precinct, and of course Chinatown. Up to 130,000 is provided in this grant to those with memberships of 120 up to 300. This ones with smaller memberships get slightly less, but however they're well supported in helping their members activate events, support as a conduit from the City of Melbourne to those small businesses. That $1 million goes out to over 1,000 small businesses right geographically around Melbourne. Highly sought after grants, all supported by volunteers, right through on the committees, the activation, the marketing. I think certainly the City of Melbourne gets more than their money's worth out of this program. But most importantly, I think that over the 26 years or so of the history of this program, it has been well sought after, and we've now got the addition of Koreatown now in the last 18 months. Very organic in its growth towards the King Street area. They spent 2 or 3 years getting themselves together to be able to achieve the requirements to be one of our precincts. They have done so now with over 25, 26 members, but most importantly, the Korean consulates put a great deal of effort in providing I call them the totem poles, but the gateway markers in Little Lonsdale Street to support that precinct. And we've got also much to thank the state government also for providing an additional 230,000 for Koreatown, and another 230 in the last budget also for Chinatown as well for increased activation. So I look forward to the comments back on the draft budget. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kevin Louis. Would any other councillors like to speak to this agenda item? I can sense that they're about to hear from another councillor when they decide which is going to go first. Councillor Gladys Liu, over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I join the excitement of my colleagues about this budget. This is my second budget here for the City of Melbourne. Being the portfolio head for community health and city services, obviously we are here to provide the basic services to our residents. Councillor Ball and also Councillor Deputy Lord Mayor already mentioned that we have increased our budget to look after the homeless and those sleeping rough, and also victims of domestic violence, and look at kids, the early childhood education and services. Now, all these are the things that we are committed to help. But not only helping those who are vulnerable and doing it tough, but we also want to help the general public to do better. So we will continue the swimming programs, and we will provide the $2 access to swimming pools. At the same time, we have these free fitness classes for people to come get physically active and also socialize with the people, their neighbors, and to get socially active and mentally challenged as well. Now, obviously, apart from services, we also look at the facilities that we have and that we want to provide, like the new library in South Bank. We also are upgrading the Boyd Community Hub, and we are in the process of working on the brand new North Melbourne Community Hub. So these are essential services and facilities that we want to bring to our residents. One very important thing I can't not mention is a big thank you to our comm team for looking into communicating with our multicultural community as well. And so this budget not only available in English, it will be available in other languages. So I do encourage people to look at it, no matter what language you speak. So have a look and give us your feedback. It is so important to hear from the people that we serve. We are the only level of government that will have our draft budget available for consultation. So not only the media scrutiny, we really want to hear from the public. So let us know how we can do better. And I'm very happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gladys Liu, and thank you for your leadership and through your portfolio responsibilities. Any other councillors? Councillor Andrew Rouse, over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If everyone else is doing it, I may as well get some thoughts out there as well. I'm very happy to support the budget being released for public feedback. I think it's fantastic that the public have the opportunity to do that. However, there's a couple of things that I think I would love to hear from the public, and I'm sure as Lord Mayor you would be in staunch agreement that there's two things Melbourne should not be, and that is going backwards and being more basic as a city. Now, that is not to conflate that with prudent financial management. That goes without saying. That absolutely must happen, and foundational services are, by definition, foundational and a core to what the City of Melbourne does. But I think it's important that as a council, our council plan and our budgets reflect something that inspires Melbourne to be better and to want to be better as well. Councillor Scott spoke about the amazing community events that we run and that we are famous for as a city. And again, that is an imperative that we support that and continue to support that. The Deputy Lord Mayor spoke about so many of the complex issues facing Melbourne and modern Melbourne. And those complex issues require complex solutions, far from anything that is basic. My request of the people of Melbourne is, in giving feedback, think about in 20 years' time, what would you like to think back on and say it's so great that the City of Melbourne in 2026 did X, Y and Z. And there's a couple of things that I'm excited to see in the budget, specifically more open spaces, more public infrastructure, the precinct program, which keeps our high streets across all of Melbourne alive. And I'm also excited to see the Innovation Development Fund get a specific mention in the budget there as well. I look forward to hearing the feedback from the public, and I'm excited to be a part of a City of Melbourne that backs ambition and backs those who wants to make Melbourne a better and greater city going forward. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hearing the public feedback.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrew Roust. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this agenda item? Councillor Philip Leilu.
Thank you. I'm happy to end it, given that I had the portfolio last term, and it's great to see that it is get back in surplus. I fought very hard. I wasn't able to deliver a surplus, but fought hard to ensure that we don't go on excessive spending, and also and everything. And the fact that you, Owen, have taken up, it's a great sight to you, and I'm very, very glad that you've taken over. And I hope we keep on delivering surplus. And people, why talk about why it's important to deliver a surplus and getting black. Well, you only have to look at it now. We didn't plan for a war. We didn't plan for gas to be $3. We didn't plan to, many other black swan events in this particular area. And we were able to get through COVID purely because we had a large surplus, and to which we have depleted and we've used. And so we need to rebuild that. But at the same time, not only do we build through revenue raising, but at the same time, we need to also stop wasteful spending on, I would also say, capital infrastructure projects, because we have a lot of projects that are very complex that we haven't even finished. For example, QVM. The fact that I've been here for 10 years and we still cannot finish QVM is, I think, pretty damning of what we can actually do. And I do hope that the fact that we have all these money, we don't take on any more complex projects. We need to finish the ones that we've started. We need to actually finish them, deliver them, and be on time. And if we are not going to be doing it anymore, that's fine. But you've got to make sure you find the money. You've got to make sure you have your business case. You've got to have all those other things before, and just rather, thought in the clouds. So I do hope that this is back to basics. This is something that we do need to get right. I'm supposed to be talking about the arts as well, but I would say this is probably the more important, because wasteful spending is something that I don't think anybody wants in this council. But also at the same time, we need to deliver, and that's something that I hope this budget will particularly deliver.
All right, thank you, Councillor Leilu, and thank you for your experience and wisdom that you've brought to this year's budget deliberations. I don't believe that there is scope for any more councillors to speak to this, unless, Councillor Owen Guest, as mover, you'd like to exercise your right of reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you for the descriptor. I think was it Financial Hawk? I do count that as a badge of honour, and having listened to us all this evening, genuine excitement. I think it highlights a lot of goodwill, as well as the pressures that come upon the City of Melbourne's budget and all government budgets. It's true. only in government will you hear people crow about how we're about to spend so much on X project with such assurance that the project will be successful. Philip, I understand the pressures you must have felt in years gone by. That is what the people of Melbourne, I wouldn't say we're up against. It is the conflict between wanting to do well, but also trying to hold back and understand our limitations. We've seen everybody here is very excited about spending money in their portfolio, which is understandable. It's a lonely job being a financial hawk sometimes, but I'm happy to do it. I understand where you were, Philip. I think we're doing things better now, and I think we can do it better still. Obviously, I'll be supporting putting this draft budget out to the public in the upcoming month, and I do encourage people, especially our ratepayers, to have your say. Thanks very much.
Thank you again, Councillor Guest. All right, I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Our draft budget is passed and out for community consultation. We move on to agenda item 6.2, review instruments of delegation, council to council staff. Could I request that a motion please be brought up on the screen? Just keep scrolling down. There we go. I believe that is it. You happy to move that motion, Councillor Guest?
Yes.
And I will second it back to you, Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. For those watching on, they may feel like they have seen something very similar before, and in fact it is something we'll be doing every 6 months as we move forward. This is the schedule or review of instruments of our delegation. There are, happy to say, no core changes from what we've seen in the past. This report presents the schedule review of council instruments of delegation from council to council staff. There are key figures that people are probably aware of, $2 million being the threshold for our CEO, Alison. I will just highlight, I don't want to go through them all, obviously, but highlight the one. Alison has a threshold, but I'd say in practice, as recently as today, I know you bring things of much smaller magnitude to our attention, which I think is a good thing, as of course is having a schedule of this sort, and it's just part of operating things in an appropriate way. It's good governance for the City of Melbourne. I'll leave it at that for this evening, but obviously I support this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Guest. I have nothing to add as seconder. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. We move on to agenda item 6.3, Procurement Australasia Ltd trading results FY 24-25. Can I request that a motion please be put on the screen? And do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Guest. I'm happy to second. Back to you, Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm sure people are sick of my voice at this stage. Excuse me. These are the trading results for the financial year 24-25, and I note they end actually on the 30th of September last year. I'm going to take them as read, but the good news for the City of Melbourne in that year is we did get a very small dividend from Procurement Australia to the tune of $62,000. Otherwise, I don't think there's enough for anything to discuss here. They're available for everyone's perusal. Happy to support the motion of the trading results for the year 24-25 for Procurement Australasia.
Thank you, Councillor Guest, and I again have nothing to add to your comprehensive summary of the paper and what we're voting on here. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? In that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. We move on to agenda item 6.4, referred documents from the 20 February 2026 Audit and Risk Committee. Can I please request that a motion be put up on the screen? That is it. Pretty simple and straightforward. Do we have a mover for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Leilu. Back to you, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I always think it's important when these motions come to the chamber on the same night as we're debating the budget, because, of course, the Audit and Risk Committee is one of those mechanisms that allows us to assure the ratepayers and indeed the people of Melbourne more broadly that we are spending their money wisely. So it's one thing for us to have a draft budget. It's another thing for that draft budget to go out to consultation. It's another thing for us to endorse that budget. But I hope it is reassuring for people to know that we also have mechanisms like the Audit and Risk Committee where we consider how the budget is going, and indeed, as per these minutes, consider it in the context of a 10-year plan and ensure that we have our eye on all of those matters as well. So again, a very thorough piece of work has gone in the preparation of the meeting itself and the running of the meeting, and I'd like to, as ever, thank our officers and thank our independent members, and in this particular case as well, thank the subsidiary companies that came along, QVM Citywide, who are also presenting at this Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Behoves councillors to make sure that we always read these, and I know we do, and very happy to move the reception, I should say, of the unconfirmed minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Over to you, Councillor Lou. Nothing from you. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? No, in that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried unanimously. All right, we move on to general business, and there is one item in general business, 7.1, notice of motion, Councillor Raphael Camillo, review of management and governance, Queen Victoria Market. There is a motion in relation to this item. Let us bring that up on the screen, and I will just humbly request that we just scroll through that so that our mover and seconder can confirm that is the correct motion. Councillor Camillo, you are moving it, and Councillor Guest, you are the seconder. Over to you, Councillor Camillo.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So the Queen Victoria Market is one of the beating hearts of Melbourne, a place where all the cultures meet, stories are shared, and generations of traders, shoppers, visitors having created memories that define who we are as a city. It is more than a market. It is a reflection of Melbourne's spirit, diverse, vibrant, entrepreneurial, and welcoming. This motion asks Council to initiate an independent review of the market's future. It is management and governance arrangements. It is about making sure this much-loved institution is equipped to thrive for decades to come, transparent, accountable, and true to its heritage and community values. Over the past several months, Councillor Guest and I spent a great deal of time listening to traders, customers, residents, heritage, advocates, market management, board. What we heard was a share of passion for the market's future and a strong desire to make it the very best it can be. That passion and that sense of shared ownership has guided this motion today. This review is an opportunity, a chance to bring everyone together, to reflect on what is working well, to identify new ideas, and to strengthen the partnership between council, management, traders, and the community. It's not about criticism. It is about building on what we have, collaboration, improvement, and shared pride in something we all love. By looking at the leading public markets around the world, in cities like London, Seattle, Barcelona, we can learn how to balance heritage with innovation, community with commerce, and tradition with modern expectation. The Queen Victoria Market has always been a place for everyone, every Melbourneian, a space that celebrates local produce, small business, multicultural exchange, and belonging. Through this review, we can ensure it remains that way, a thriving, inclusive, world-class market at the heart of a world-class city. I thank Councillor Guest for his partnership on this motion, and I invite all councillors to join us in supporting this important step towards renew and unify future for the Queen Victoria Market.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Over to you, Councillor Owen Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I will never be able to display passion in the way that Raf can, but I couldn't possibly disagree. This is about looking for a win-win, looking for management, for traders, and to all who love the Queen Victoria Market to bring us all together. There's no witch hunt here. We just want everybody to do well. I like to think of it as a win-win. I think you've put a great motion together, Raf, and I'm happy to support it. We have, and we've spoken with a lot of people, but we want everyone to benefit from this process. So that's what this is about. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Nick.
All right, thank you for that, Councillor Guest. Would any other councillors like to speak to this agenda item? Councillor Gladys Liu.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. When I came to this country 41 years ago, I used to live in Carlton, and Queen Victoria Market was where I went for my weekend shopping for my grocers. And I love the market, and I know not only me, but a lot of international students at the time, a lot of residents, a lot of visitors. So Queen Vic Market, it is an iconic place that's standing in the city of Melbourne that we are all very proud of. It has been operating for so long. I think it is a very good idea to do a review to see how we can manage this place even better to benefit the traders, the shoppers, and everyone, and the reputation of the market. So I fully support the review of the market.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Are there any other councillors who should be? Councillor Philip Leilu.
Thanks. I'm happy to support Raf's position on this, but I think also I also want to acknowledge, I guess, the environment and also the issues to which I guess the Queen Victoria Market board and I guess management had to deal with. When we first started this project back in, God knows, 2000, 13 years ago, we planned this to be pretty much done and dusted. And yet, along the way, we've had many, I guess, surprises, directions, COVID, and the fact that to this day, it's still not finished. We took on this, City of Melbourne decided, for the life of me, I still don't understand why we decided to do renewal ourselves when we should have actually gone to outside. But, that's something that we can't change. But I do want to recognise, I think, not only the current management, but also previous management's board and everything. I know the difficulties that you have. In a way, we at City of Melbourne created that for you. It's not an easy task. I do appreciate the effort that you have gone into to actually create that. Not only yourself, Matt, but also many of the executives and also people on the ground who works day in, day out. I think we can really say everyone loves the market. It's been too long, not only from the traders' perspective, but also from us as the biggest shareholder. But I think also the fact is we need to recognise that. And so that's why I was saying, Rick, you have a big job. I think every time I ask you, it's always when is QVM going to finish? And so that's my number one question. No other ifs and buts about it. And so we are committed to Queen Victoria Market, but at the end of the day, we do also have to recognise that it is, we've got a cemetery down, at the bottom of the parking. We've got the highest level of heritage. We've got different, requirements put upon us. And so it's a very, very difficult environment. And so I do hope, the report does show that, and also the hard partnerships that we had to endure. But I do also hope to say to the QVM management, I do hope that, do not take this as a kind of a slight. We know the difficulties that you guys are doing. We do hope that, you work with the traders and everyone else to do the best we can. And hopefully let's finish it so that we can get a vibrant QVM out of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leilu. Councillor Olivia Ball.
Thank you. I have a question, if I may, for either the mover or for council business. Can I just confirm that this motion as moved is unaltered from the one that was posted publicly last week? Ralph? Yes. Is that the case?
Councillor Kimler, do you want to just put your microphone
The same motion that's current in the website.
I see. Thank you very much. Can I please propose 2 amendments?
Yes, you may, Councillor
Thank
Ball.
you. I think council business has them, and the first is a slight alteration to clause 1.2, namely to remove the idea that the CEO would work with councillors. I'll continue while we wait for the text. Where the idea that the CEO would continue to work with change the proposal that the CEO works with the councillors behind the scenes to prepare terms of reference and other terms for this review. I think that should be altered for governance reasons.
So before you get into debate about the amendments,
Certainly.
You're outlining them, then we will see if there's a seconder.
Yes.
And then we can debate the
Please do.
proposed amendments. So the amendments that are being proposed are the words we can see in blue on the screen currently. So it's an amendment to 1.2. Then we scroll down, there's a further amendment there to 1.22. And we keep scrolling, I believe.
No, just that is the first. The amendment is only to clause 1.2, but it is to delete the word prepare and delete the word present and alter the blue text at the top. That's my first amendment, yes.
All right. Is there a seconder for that amendment?
I'll happily second to hear the debate, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rouse. Back to you, Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse and Lord Mayor. I think it's beholden on us proposing a review of governance to hold ourselves to the highest standards of good governance, and I'm concerned that this wording suggests that councillors and CEO would work together behind the scenes to do anything at all, when in fact there are only 2 ways that councils can act, and that is by making decisions in open session or closed session, by resolution, and of course by officers acting under delegation. So this original wording I would like to see changed, because I don't think it's an appropriate way for us to suggest we undertake this review. The amendment that I propose will give transparency over the decisions made to adopt the terms of reference, rather than leaving it to a series of conversations unseen between officers and councillors outside of any decision-making forum. I think that is proper. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Rouse.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to ask the CEO, given that the amendment specifically relates to her involvement in this process, your opinion and advice on the proposed change, whether that adds benefit to it or if the original was in fact more beneficial for getting a positive outcome for Melbourne.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse, for your question, and through you, Lord Mayor. The reality of the situation is that I would be working with the councillor group to define the terms of reference. So that would be done through our regular forum processes, whereby I would be discussing with you the scope of the review. Either of the options in my mind work. The original motion as proposed by Councillor Camillo would still enable me to work with the councillor group to form the terms of reference in accordance with the prescribed elements of the motions, which I think is an important point, that it's very clear in the motion what I'm being asked to do. So the original motion as proposed by Councillor Camillo would enable me to do that. Equally, the change proposed by Councillor Ball would enable me to formalise a council position in relation to the terms of reference, so that would be endorsed by council. So I guess what I'm saying is, in my mind, both options are workable for me.
And can I just clarify, when you say an endorsed position, that would provide councillors with more information on which to make the next decision? Is that fair to say?
No, I think where Councillor Ball's motion is present a report to council, council being the governing body, which would therefore mean that it would be an endorsed position of council with respect to the terms of reference, whereby my interpretation of Councillor Camillo's wording is that it would be anticipated that I would work with the councillors, and therefore it wouldn't be necessarily in a council, the governing body being a formal decision of council. So I don't know that it would necessarily result in a difference in the amount of information being provided to councillors. I anticipate that would be the same amount of information.
I think Councillor Guest has a question. Obviously, a councillor can ask a question at any time, but you're in the middle of speaking, so.
I just asked two questions. I haven't started speaking, so happy
okay.
Councillor
All right.
Guest to ask a question.
As the seconder, you have the floor if you wish now.
I'm just trying to grapple with the minutiae of what the CEO said. Nothing further to add. Happy for Councillor Guest to ask a question.
Okay. Councillor Guest.
With my governance hat on, I was assured to hear the response of Alison, our CEO. The way it's written to me speaks to a collegiate approach where we're working together. No one would dream of telling you what to do, Alison, our CEO. We understand what we can and can't do, but I'd like to think that we work together, we talk and we throw ideas around. That's what the motion and the way it's worded speaks to me, a collegiate approach. So I don't have any problem with the way it's worded at the moment. And it sounds like you don't have a problem either.
I'm going to take it that there was a question there somewhere. Did you want to respond?
Once again, yeah. Does that reference a collegiate approach?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Guest. Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I believe that working with the councillors to prepare the terms of reference is indicative of a collegiate approach between the CEO and the councillor group.
Okay. All right. Do any other councillors wish to speak to this proposed amendment?
Point of order. I thought we usually have the mover of amendment and then seconder of the amendment speak first, and then it's open for discussion. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you have spoken.
I wanted to hear the debate.
So we have heard from the mover and the seconder already, or yes, yes, yeah.
That's my understanding. Yes. Okay. Do any other councillors want to speak to the proposed amendment? No. In that case, we'll put the proposed amendment to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. Councillor Ball, Councillor Griffiths. All those not supporting the amendment, raise your hand. Councillor Louis, Councillor Guest, Councillor Camillo, Councillor Leilu, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Scott, Councillor Liu, Councillor Rouse, Councillor Rees. So that amendment has not succeeded. We will return to the substantive motion. We'll bring that back up on the screen.
I have a second amendment, please.
Okay, let's bring the second proposed amendment up on the screen.
The second amendment
So,
concerns...
sorry, we won't return to the substantive motion for the sake of meeting efficiency. We will proceed to view Councillor Ball's second proposed amendment.
Thank you. It is simply, as council business has kindly done, simply to delete that particular clause 1.4, which calls for an interim report as well as a final report. It's simply to delete that part, and I won't speak to it until we have a seconder, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Is there a seconder for that proposed amendment? I don't believe there's a seconder for that proposed amendment. In that case, we won't be proceeding with debate on that amendment. We will now return to the substantive motion, please. All right, so Councillor Camillo and Councillor Gesser. Councillor David Griffiths, over to you.
Can I ask a question, please, Lord Mayor, in reference to clause 1.2.2, which, as I read it at the moment, but please, CEO, correct me if I'm wrong, the motion is asking you to work with councillors and to present options, estimated costs and key considerations for engaging an external consultant. So those options are presented, but there's no decision gateway associated with that clause. Am I right in saying so? I'm wondering what the purpose in presenting an array of options is if the rest of the motion then calls on the review to be conducted.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. My interpretation of this particular clause is that as part of working with the councillor group to define the terms of reference, the next step would then be to present options to be able to implement that review, and those options would include, in my mind, things like the type of consultant we may choose to engage, the level of depth in analysis we may choose to undertake with respect to stakeholder engagement, a range of considerations that would enable us to achieve the terms of reference for the review, but also secure clarity in relation to the way in which that review would be done. With respect to whether or not there's a decision gateway that's required, that would then come down to considering things such as my financial delegation and whether I would have the delegated authority from council to proceed with procuring consultants to undertake that review, whether or not the review and the terms of reference and scope we arrive at is consistent with council policy. If it wasn't, then that would be cause for me to bring that back to council for a decision in relation to that next step and that engagement. So I think until we work through the specific terms of reference for the review and I present those options to council, I'll then be able to be in a better position to ascertain whether or not I would require a decision of council or whether I would have the delegated authority to proceed with the review as proposed.
Satisfied with that response, Councillor Griffiths? Okay, let's we return to the substantive motion. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the substantive motion? Councillor Dr. Olivia Ball.
Thank you. I am afraid I can't support this motion, not because I don't think a governance and management review of our subsidiary current company is warranted. It is. But because of the scope and the timing of the review that's being proposed. The market, as we all agree, is a very special place, and council, as the sole shareholder, has an important duty to ensure that the market company has been set up to operate efficiently while respecting the heritage of the market precinct. And this council has not always lived up to this duty, and there were many reasons why the market was established as a subsidiary company in the 1990s, while the council was sacked, with day-to-day operations put outside the reach of councillors. So any review has to be done for the right reasons in view of the history and complexity, and done very carefully. The elephant in the room that is not mentioned in this motion is the QVM renewal program. The purpose of that program is to set the market up for success for generations to come. $30 million has already been spent on the heritage sheds refurbishment alone, which was essential to seeing the market continue to operate as the largest open-air market in the Southern Hemisphere. But the remaining elements of the renewal program, including critically Market Square, will continue to transform the precinct with ramifications for the market. They will provide new revenue opportunities to the market as well. And at the end of the renewal program, the market will be operating in a very different financial and built environment. Our QVM renewal implementation framework is now 4 years out of date. So there's understandable uncertainty about the renewal programs, how the renewal program is going to be completed, especially around sequencing and timing. And it's the council's responsibility to provide that clarity. And it's the subsidiary company's responsibility to respond to it. The market can't respond to an absence of clarity about when the renewal program will be completed. So we, as this council, need to take some responsibility here. The last time the council issued a statement of shareholder expectations to the market was, I believe, in 2017. And it set out council's expectations about how the subsidiary company should operate while the renewal program was underway. That statement of shareholder expectations hasn't been replaced or reviewed since, so there's not been any indication from the council that the board has failed to live up to our expectations, as far as I can tell. So while I'm all for exploring ways to improve the governance and operations of the market, I don't think the case has been made as to why a comprehensive governance and management review of the company should occur right now and on these terms, rather than at the end of the renewal program, when the market's revenue-raising potential is going to increase anyway. A comprehensive review is a very disruptive sort of thing to commission, and having an interim report in 5 months followed by a final report in 12 months is the sort of thing that could add a whole lot of new disruption and uncertainty at a time when council should be focused instead on providing clarity about how and when the renewal program will be completed. And finally, we must be mindful of the important agreements the City of Melbourne has signed with the state government and with Lendlease about what will be delivered and when. There are some very important deadlines coming up that will fall between the deadline for the interim report and the final report of this governance review if it proceeds. And I'm not convinced that the timing of this review and its separation from the renewal program is the best strategy, even though I recognise the importance of the issues this motion raises. So I will be voting against this motion.
All right, thank you, Councillor Ball. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? You will get a right of reply, Councillor Camilla, as the mover. I'm happy to speak to it as in my capacity as Lord Mayor. I'll begin by saying it's terrific to see so many interested members of the public here this evening who clearly are here to hear a debate on this item. I can see traders, members of Friends of Queen Victoria Market, members of the QVM community. I can see QVM leaders here like Matt Elliott and Chair Jane Fenton as well. It's fair to say there's a lot of love in this chamber tonight for Queen Victoria Market, and that's before we get to the love of the councillors and the folks here at the City of Melbourne as well. And love it we should, because Queen Victoria Market is one of the great markets of the world. And over the last decade, the City of Melbourne has been making its biggest ever investment in its future. I support this review. It initiates an external independent review of the management and governance arrangements of QVM, focusing on effectiveness, accountability and alignment with Council's strategic objectives for the precinct. Melburnians love this market. Traders have built their livelihoods here, and Council has invested heavily in its future. A rigorous, forward-looking review will give traders, customers and the community confidence that QVM is ready for its next chapter. The terms of reference for the review should be designed to answer the right questions. How do we ensure the market is ready for what's ahead, including the completion of the renewal program, the changing needs of traders and customers, and the evolving role of the market in the city's life? I support meaningful engagement, clear, accessible pathways for traders and opportunities for customers, residents and local businesses to contribute, with transparent reporting back to Council. In the period in which the review is being conducted, the operators of the market must have Council support to continue delivering on both their core business and the change program necessary to modernise operations in line with Council's renewal program. Done well, this review can help set the agenda for what the market becomes, not just assess what it has been. It is important that we have the right vision, settings and strategy so QVM thrives for future generations. We do know that standing still is not an option. So all things considered, I think this review can be a very positive thing for everybody in this room and for the market, which we all love so much. So on that note, I will be supporting this review and voting for it when it's put to the vote very shortly. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this item? No. In that case, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillor Louis, Councillor Guest, Councillor Camillo, Councillor Leilu, Councillor Griffiths, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Scott, Councillor Liu, Councillor Rouse, Councillor Rees. All those against, Councillor Ball. The motion is passed. Thank you. All right.
Lord Mayor,
move
Chair,
on to
if I may,
next
Lord Mayor.
agenda item.
Lord Mayor, if I may.
Councillor Olivia Ball.
Thank you very much. Under Rule 50 of the Governance Rules, I'd like to request that my reasons for opposition to the motion be recorded in the minutes, which were, in summary, that the timing and scope of this review are inappropriate in light of Council not also articulating when and how the QVM renewal program will be completed.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
That will occur, Councillor Ball. All right. We move on to urgent business as we have concluded items of general business. I don't believe there are any items of urgent business before us. So we move on to agenda item 9, which is closure of the open meeting. And I call on a councillor to move a motion displayed on the screen, which brings the open council meeting to a close. Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Councillor Rouse seconding. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, it's a procedural motion, and I declare that carried unanimously. So I can therefore wish to thank members of the public for their interest and attendance and declare the open meeting closed at 6:55 p.m. Thank you, one and all.